Bowl gas.
Yes, yes, yes. Boomer and Carton, Super Bowl 51, Houston Convention Center. So a Super Bowl that's got no buzz at all yet, other than, a Barstool story here, a Goodell story there. Will hopefully change in the next 48 hours so we get back into, hey, it's the Super Bowl. Joining us now are Simon Wilcots, who's a longtime NFL analyst and a CBS guy, and a young man named Joyce, who you've never heard of, but I'll tell you Jim is in a second. Jim's a good guy, but Jim, they came on here to talk about CTE and concussions, but there's something much more important for me selfishly. Jim, and I've done the research. First off, hi guys, how are you?
Hi, Greg.
If I'm not
I
mistaken,
have no idea where he's going with it, Jim, so good luck, man.
I like to research who's coming on the show. What's that ring you got there, by the way? It's a nice ring.
Oh, I'm glad you noticed it.
What is that?
This would be a ACC championship ring.
ACC championship
Back in the
ring.
days when Maryland was in the ACC.
You went to Maryland.
Yes.
Oh, I did.
Jim, if I may ask you, who was your roommate at Maryland?
Oh, I had several of them.
Was there a blonde 6'4" at the time, 200-pound quarterback from East Islip, New York, for one of those years?
Sounds familiar.
Tell me everything.
That's right.
No.
Tell me. Boomer told me a story. He once dated a girl that smelled like chlorine. She was a swimmer at Maryland.
You know,
That's
Craig,
all I want to know.
This is a never-ending question. You know, start telling one thing, and then there's going to be retaliation.
So beer after the show, we'll get down.
Roommates are,
Smart
I guess we're kind of sworn to secrecy.
Boomer, if I
guess
told you
so.
that Jim Joyce would become the founder and CEO of a medical company, at the time, would you have said no way? Would
Well,
you
you
be
know,
like, I got
Jimmy
it?
was a defensive lineman. He was a defensive tackle, if I remember correctly. Defensive tackle, right? You would never think that a defensive tackle would come up with something that is so groundbreaking and
right.
potentially could be life-altering for many of us who play in the game of football.
Yeah. Now let me say, obviously, my feelings about concussion conversations. I know it's what you guys are here to talk about. Is that I get it. It's a violent sport. I personally, as a fan of football, I'm tired of hearing about it. Doesn't mean that there shouldn't be research done, find out, how widespread it is. And I know you lost a dear friend to amounted to CT-related cause of death. But for guys that played football, and I'll start with Solomon, you knew it was a violent sport. And there's two issues here. Should there be research? Of course there should be. But should we get rid of football because it's violent?
No.
I would think you don't subscribe to that.
Oh, absolutely not. And many of us, we knew what we were signing up for. We knew there were some inherent dangers. None of us knew that it could really alter our life in a cognitive way, in terms of our overall cognitive health. I don't think any of us thought that we would lose the ability to remember family members and some of those other things. And
Especially early on in life.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you're
Yeah.
around 40 years old and all of a sudden you're starting to
Yeah.
be forgetful and you can't
Absolutely.
remember or even recognize
Well,
somebody.
Yeah,
I just don't
absolutely.
understand where you guys are coming from. You guys aren't blaming the NFL for that, are you?
No.
Oh, no, that's
absolutely
not what this is about
Okay.
at all. This is about new discoveries, new breakthroughs, and an educational campaign that should be shared with everyone.
Because as far as I know, you can't determine if someone had CT until they're dead.
That's correct.
Currently.
Only through postmortem autopsy.
Go ahead.
So I want to reel you in a little bit, Craig.
Go ahead.
Because you talked about concussions. The evidence that's coming forth now, based on lots of research, is starting to indicate that CTE is not specifically or solely related to concussions. It's related to an accumulation of subconcussive blows over long periods of time. And I think our former teammate, Tom McHale, he was the second person diagnosed with CTE by the Boston University CTE Center. And Tom was an interesting case because he had never had a reported concussion. He actually transferred out of Maryland to get an Ivy League degree and became somewhat successful after football, but never had a documented concussion. And since then, a lot of research studies have really focused on the pathology of this disease, and it really does seem like it's a disease driven more by repetitive subconcussive blows than concussions themselves.
Just out of curiosity, and I didn't know Tom or of him, why did they even test him for CT when he died?
It was early stage. And at that time, not long after that time, we started examining brain samples of former players looking for a biomarker. It wasn't until a few years later that we actually got a hit based on a biomarker in the blood.
So sorry for interrupting. Do you believe there will be the day, I don't know, maybe it's today, where you can do a blood test and get some markers that would indicate that a person is more prone to it, or no?
No, I think there's absolutely going to be a blood test at some point in time in the future. Initially, it'll be a blood test that will identify biomarkers that could be associated with the CTE and be able to monitor progression of CTE. But eventually, these biomarkers should be able to be standardized to be able to quantify levels of the marker to actually define the disease itself.
Sure, I appreciate it. Jim Joyce is here, and Salman Wilcots. Salman, Boomer went to see the movie Concussion. I imagine you've seen it.
Yeah, we all seen it.
Boomer
yeah.
came out, and I'm sorry to talk about it with him next to me, put words in his mouth. He came out feeling like a victim.
Yeah.
Same for you?
I felt like there was some good information there. I also felt like maybe not the whole story was told, but certainly you felt like some of those individuals were victims. And again, I already said players never signed up to risk their overall cognitive health. Many of us said, yeah, okay, you could break some bones. There could even be spinal cord injuries. We were taught to play the game in a safe and proper way. And so I don't know that any of us played with fear of any of those injuries, but none of us signed up thinking there would be some kind of long-term ramifications when it comes to our overall cognitive health. So that movie sent me thinking about a lot of things, but more reflecting on the people that it affected, because I knew some of those guys. I played with Justin Strelzik in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, listen, I think what you're doing is great. I think if we could develop a blood test so a guy that can make a better decision about his future, whether to continue to play or not, would be fantastic. But my thing is that, yes, you didn't sign up to play a sport in which you thought you wouldn't remember things or have Alzheimer type symptoms, but you didn't sign up for football going, I'm probably going to limp the rest of my life either.
Well, you knew that you could get an injury that could lead to the limp, and all of us weigh that kind of risk.
Sure.
I'm a real big proponent of football, particularly at the youth level. I think it offers you so many more positive advantages in life. It teaches you leadership. It teaches you how to go out and compete. I can really stack all the chips on that side of the scale and speak positively about what participating in all sports, youth sports, particularly football, and what that gives to our young people. But also, we have to we got to be smart. We have to be informed so we can make smart, informed decisions.
That's not even really the discussion we're having. We're having a discussion now that there's I guess a movement underway now, Jim, for the last 6-7 years now that we are really trying to understand the ramifications of CTE, how to test for it, how to find out how deep somebody may be into a CTE situation, and that's basically what your company's trying to do.
No, that's right. And we were graciously invited into the first NIH-funded CTE program to study the disease in former NFL players. And the biomarker we discovered was evaluated, and we saw, it was very interesting, we saw that the levels of this marker in former NFL players as compared to former athletes that participated in sports that didn't involve head trauma, we saw the levels on average about 9 times higher in the NFL subjects as the athlete controls. But then there was a battery of cognitive decline tests that involved memory tests, psychomotor tests, and what correlated was the higher the tau zone levels, that's the name of our biomarker, the worse in general people performed on these tests. So this is really important. It's a good starting place, but in the backdrop of this, people need to understand this is a disease condition that has never been found in somebody that didn't participate in sports that involve repetitive head trauma.
Got it.
So what that means is in the general population, this does not exist. So it's important. There's not a big business incentive. There's a lot of media incentive and other incentives to talk about this disease, but there's not much going on as it relates to diagnostics or therapies. And the one thing I would add is until there's a diagnostic, the ability to identify the disease and monitor progression, candidate therapies can't be evaluated.
Got it. Listen, I appreciate you guys coming here. I know Archie Manning's standing behind you. We're going to get to him in a second. My final question about this. Is the NFL supportive of what you guys are doing, and would they be a partner with you in your research so that they can be a part of the solution?
We haven't talked to the NFL directly, but we're getting to the point where the science should be embraced. It starts to provide answers. And again, we want to accelerate the advancement of this to get former players in a position to receive therapies.
And you would let your son play football, yes or no?
It would be up to him.
Be up to anybody who'd let him play.
I would let mine play.
You
That's
would.
for
You know,
sure, yeah.
when these guys get up, it just goes to show you how smart the guys were that I actually played with.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And lived with.
I was surprised by that, Boomer.
By the way, he's not what Maryland's known for. I appreciate you guys coming here.
All right, Craig.
Solomon
Thanks
looks like
for
he's been
having
working
me,
out,
man.
though. Jim, not so much. Pleasure. Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you for
thanks,
coming
Craig.
by.
Appreciate
Very
it.
good. My pleasure.
See you,
Archie
boys.
Manning's here, and we'll have Archie come up here in a second. You should check out